dog, and I got all kinds of stuff going on today. I got the kid in the back and the dog in the car. But I'm here. Yes, all four. But I'm here. It's hard to get a kid to go where you want it to go. You're like, I got 3 minutes. And yes. Some days more challenging than others. Well, thank you. Does it look? I don't even know if I'm wearing makeup, so okay. The days I'm just here.
Okay, it's time to call this meeting to order. City of North Kansas City, Missouri, regular council meeting amended June 6, 2017. Could we have a moment of silence? Christine Evans. Well, there she is.
It's me coughing up along in the back. I apologize. I wanted to just come and take just a few little moments, if I could, for a few things. One, to thank all of you for the support that you've given Feed Northland Kids for the past 3 years as part of the Harris Charitable Fund distribution. I see each of you every year when it's time to go pick up that check, and I always try and find you and thank you. But it occurred to me that you probably haven't seen the actual product that we support and expand, and you might want a little bit more information about who we are. I know it's always helpful for me when I look at things like that. So if it's all right, I thought I would maybe pass around a little back snack so you can get an idea of what it is, and then I have a little information if you're interested as well. So I think you will recall that we are the group, our name, Feed Northland Kids, who are focused on feeding kids in Clay and Platte County. That's the only reason we exist, and we've been around now since 2009. And that truly was the whole reason we formed. We came across a needs assessment in 2009 that highlighted childhood hunger as a significant issue in the Northland. And a number of us thought that that was a pretty dismal report and certainly not a problem that we needed to have here in the Northland. We have more than enough wealth and more than enough people that we can solve this issue. So we started looking for a program, and we found Harvester's Back Snack Program, which is what you're looking at there. And that's a 4-pound packet of food. It's designed to feed a child for a weekend. It is shelf-stable. It's kid-friendly. It's got a lot of pop-top tabs on it, so you don't need a can opener to consume it. You don't need a refrigerator. You'll notice 2 boxes of milk in there. I didn't know there was shelf-stable milk before 2009. And it's designed to do a pretty good job of feeding those kids for the weekend. And in the past 6 years that we've been partnering with Harvesters, we've nearly tripled the funding for the number of children to receive that program on the weekends. The school counselors help facilitate the program in each of the elementary schools and determine who could use that, and there's a conversation that occurs with each of those families. About 75% of the time, it's kids who qualify for free or reduced lunch, but not always. And that was important to us because it shouldn't really matter what the need is or what your income level is. If you're hungry, you want to make sure that you're fed. And that's one of the reasons we really like this program. So we're in all 9 school districts north of the river. As you can imagine, your own school district is the largest one we serve, and we feed nearly 900 children every Friday that school is in session with that program. It's about 30% of the free and reduced lunch kids overall. You have 2 schools, as you know, in your district that go year-round, so those kids receive that food the entire time school is in session. They'll take home 2 at spring break. They'll take home 2 at the holiday break at Christmas time. And the goal is to get those kids the nutrition they need so that those little brains, those little bodies can keep developing as they should. And in order to do that, we need to raise a lot of money. That's a lot of children. Currently, it's 2,400 kids in those 9 school districts, and we're just talking Clay and Platte County. This is a citywide, all of the counties that Harvesters is in program, but our focus is just on the Northland. So we are now in 18 of your elementary schools, of your 21 schools, and I believe you have 2 more opening this next year. I would imagine we'll have a role in those schools as well. And our next goal is a middle school program, and we're actually starting to evaluate programs. It's looking something like maybe a school pantry that will be inside the school counselor's office. We know that hunger follows these kids. We wanted to start with the youngest and expand as we were able, and after 6 years, with a lot of consistent funding, we're able to do that. So you are a big reason why we are able to do that in the North Kansas City School District. That $3,000 or $4,000 we get from you will feed a fair amount of children. It's $250 a year for the entire school year for that child. So, you know, your $4,000, that's 16 kids. That's nearly 1 in each elementary school. It's very, very helpful. And I wanted to make sure that you know we appreciate that and kind of give you a heads up of a little more in depth of what we're doing. I know you look at quite a few programs when that time comes, and it's maybe hard to keep us all straight. So it was really the purpose of my few minutes with you this evening. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Or
I'm very impressed, not only with your program, but with the fact that you came down here and addressed the council with your story. In the years that I've been on the council, I don't know of anybody else from Harris recipient that's ever come down before us like you have.
wow, really?
I mean,
Wow.
it's possible. Maybe somebody else can think of one, but I'm very impressed with that, and it behooves you very, very good to come down and do that for us. We appreciate that very much. At
you.
least I do.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Well, thank you. That's nice of you to say. And we have another mayor, well, a former mayor. I don't know if many of you knew Bill Cross, but we do a 5K every year in his memory, and he was the mayor of Gladstone for a number of years. So I always kind of think of him when I think of you all, because it's another chamber that is still helping us after all this time. So, any other questions? No? All right, I
Thanks for
left some
coming.
info with you. If you have anything or think of anything, by all means, call me or email me, and I'm happy to answer. Thanks for your time.
Okay, comments from the public.
I'm Rich Groves, North Kansas City Business Council, and I want to address item number 22 on the agenda. And it's because businesses like Chicken and Pickle and Paul and Jack's and Cinder Block and the others in that area have created a problem, a really good problem, of not enough parking, and it's impacting both customers and employees. And I just really want to compliment Northtown Devco, Richard Lanning particularly, and the city for being open to this idea that would expand the parking in that area at some busy times, about 100 parking spaces. So I think it's a really good thing, and I hope that you all agree.
Hi, my name's Katie Carney. These are some of my coworkers, my boss. Hi, again. We're from Paul and Jack's, and we found that it is very kind of scary to walk to our cars at night, whether we go a couple of blocks or even only one. But our personal safety is very important to us and our boss and everyone around us, and having this parking lot would do a lot in the midst of our personal safety. Just walking across the street instead of a couple of blocks to get to our cars at the end of the night, very late at night a lot of times. So we would appreciate it muchly to have this. Thank you.
I'm Joanne Zumbro, and I am an employee at Paul and Jack's. I've been there for several years. I grew up in North Kansas City. I graduated from Northtown. My mom still lives down here. The fact that Katie said that it is very important for us to have someplace that we feel safe when we're walking out, because a lot of times there's only a couple people in Paul and Jack's when it's time for us to leave, and sometimes we have to split ways to go. One goes one way and the other goes the other way. And with the amount of locations that are now at Paul and Jack's, I mean, we feel very unsafe walking even down you know, a couple blocks down, where back in the day, it was no problem. Now we just would like someplace that's easy for us to park, that we can see our vehicles, we can watch our vehicles. If somebody's there, they can watch us to our vehicle and watch us get in and pull away. So we would appreciate if y'all would open this up for us and make us feel safer and make our customers feel safer also.
So you all are speaking in favor of agenda item 22?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that, okay, thank you.
That's correct.
Does anyone know, would there be any plans to, like, put a walk-through gate in there? Because otherwise, you're gonna have to walk all the way around each time.
Right, and that would kind of defeat the purpose of us walking up and down the street. So yeah, if we had a gate, that would be amazing. Thank you.
The only other thing I might say is that we basically were making these parking for the paying customers. I realized I didn't think about employee parking, but let's be discreet. Yeah. Go ahead.
So I'm Mindy Hart Davis, resident of North Kansas City and business owner here in North Kansas City, and I also am speaking in favor of item 22 on the agenda. My husband has rheumatoid arthritis, and he was diagnosed at the age of 33. So 20 years later, there are times when it is very difficult for him to walk long distances. There's times he goes to work on crutches, and he's a mechanic, so you can imagine what that's like. And so for us to be able to go enjoy a dinner at Paul and Jack's or any of the other establishments in that area, to walk sometimes 3 or 4 blocks because there's no parking, we end up deciding to go home and going through drive-through instead because he can't walk that far. So having the increased parking across the street from Paul and Jack's and that whole district there, that hub, if you will, at Clay, gives us the ability, and other people in similar situations, because if we think of all of the demographics that use, we've got millennials to retired people that go into those businesses. And my husband's not unique. There's a lot of people that have challenges physically to get into those buildings. So having that additional parking makes it a definite benefit to us as consumers to be able to give our patronage to those businesses. So I request respectfully that you consider and approve this item on your agenda.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. Consent agenda.
Move that the consent agenda be approved as written.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Number 11.
Approval of final plat of Armour Road redevelopment, third plat, bill number 7197, ordinance number 8994.
Mike?
Yes, I'll ask Sarah Copeland to give you the background information on this one.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This plat is the third plat within our redevelopment area. It concerns approximately 7.4 acres on the south side of Armour Road between Taney and Mill Streets and Railroad Avenue. This entire area is currently unplatted. This plat creates 2 additional lots, but also dedicates right-of-way for Vernon Street south of Armour, as well as additional right-of-way for Mill Street and Railroad Avenue. And on May 11th, the Planning Commission reviewed this plat for conformance with the approved preliminary plat and unanimously recommended approval to you. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
First reading.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
An ordinance approving the final plat of Armour Road redevelopment, third plat in the city of North Kansas City, Missouri.
I move that bill number 7197 be placed on second and final reading and passes ordinance number 8994.
Second.
Call roll.
Councilmember Farr?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember DeLong?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Pearman?
Yes?
Councilmember Sanders?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Steffen?
Yes.
An ordinance approving the final plat of Armour Road redevelopment, third plat in the city of North Kansas City, Missouri.
Number 12.
Award of contract Vernon Street Project, Resolution number 17-047.
And I would ask Sarah Copeland to give you the background information on this.
We currently have underway in the Armor Road redevelopment area the first phase of infrastructure improvements for Taney Street and for the first segment of Mill Street and associated water and sanitary sewer and communications duct banks and sidewalks, et cetera. This contract would be to start work on the second phase of this for Vernon Street, south of Armor, but also some improvements on the north side, as well as some additional segments of Mill Street and Railroad Avenue. In this year's budget, we have just over $2.5 million budgeted for this project. We opened bids last Thursday and received 4 bids. The lowest and best bid was submitted by Clarkson Construction for $2,361,841.59. The engineer's estimate was just over $2.6 million. So this is within our budgeted amount for this project. And a resolution approving the contract has been prepared for your consideration. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have about this.
Is Clarkston currently doing the work down there now?
Yes, Clarkson is the contractor for our first phase as
So we
well.
wouldn't have to wait for somebody to leave and somebody come in if this is approved.
That's right.
Thank you. First reading?
Second.
Oh, that's a resolution. I move that.
Oh, it's a resolution.
Yes, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Who made the second?
Mr. Sanders.
13.
Task order number 16 with Olson Associates, Vernon Street Project, Resolution number 17-045.
Mike?
I'll ask Sarah Copeland to explain this one to you, if she would.
You all have approved with previous contracts Olson Associates to do construction observation, inspection and testing, administration and construction engineering work. This is for the extension of that work for this next phase of the project to be done by Olson. They did provide a more detailed breakdown of this work for this work order tonight because you all have had a lot of questions about what exactly they'd be doing in the past. So you'll notice in the work order that they've broken out the number of tests and the types of tests to be done as part of this work. This is a more cost-efficient in some ways work order because they already have people on site. So for some of this time, we won't need to pay for another person because there's already someone. As you mentioned, we have Clarkson on site already and we have Olson on site already. So this is a smaller contract. We do have Jonathan Hofflander from Olson Associates here if you have any specific questions about this.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Number 14.
Sidewalk Improvement Agreement with Department of Transportation, Bill number 7201, ordinance number 8998.
Mike?
And if Sarah could explain this one as well.
So, as part of all of this work, we are installing sidewalk on the south side of Armor Road. The sidewalk actually extends all the way west underneath the overpass to Ozark. And it will go all the way to the east to Railroad Avenue. And it's all in MoDOT right-of-way. So we are required by MoDOT, as part of the condition of them approving this work, to execute a sidewalk improvement agreement with them, stating that we will maintain this sidewalk into the future. The agreement so I will back up just a little bit. We agreed with MoDOT that we would do one agreement covering all of this sidewalk, even though we're doing it kind of in 2 segments with our own construction. So this covers both the sidewalk that's part of our initial contract with Clarkson and the sidewalk that's part of this second contract with Clarkson. This is very similar to the agreement that you approved in 2014 for the Shoto, the sidewalks along Shoto that are within our municipal boundaries. If you have any questions about this, I would be happy to answer them.
First reading?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
An ordinance approving a sidewalk improvements agreement by and between the City of North Kansas City, Missouri and the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission regarding Armor Road, State Route 210.
I I move that bill number 7201 be placed on second and final reading and pass as ordinance number 8998.
Second.
Call the roll.
Councilmember Farr?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember DeLong?
Yes.
Councilmember Pearman?
Yes.
Councilmember Sanders?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Steffen?
Yes.
An ordinance approving a sidewalk improvements agreement by and between the City of North Kansas City, Missouri and the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission regarding Armour Road, State Route 210.
15.
SCS Engineers environmental work in the Armour Road redevelopment area, Phase 2, Resolution number 17-048.
For a change of pace, we're going to ask Tom Barzee to explain this one to you.
This will be a real change of pace, I assure you. Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, as you'll recall, several months ago, back in January, the city approved a contract with SCS Engineers to do certain environmental work down on the Armour Road redevelopment area, specifically in that area that the city acquired by its power of eminent domain that used to be owned by Northtown Devco. And part of that property that the city obtained has a section of it that has certain restrictive covenants that are placed on it. And we hired SCS. They did a phase 1. They've been working with MDNR, the Missouri Department of Natural Resources, to be able to perhaps modify and lift some of these restrictions, and things are going ahead as we would like them to go. But in order to do that, we now need to do what's called a limited phase 2 environmental site assessment on the property. And that's where they'll be actually doing some sampling and drilling, et cetera, and some other related work. And as you'll notice in the proposal that's here, there's a number of items that add up to ultimately a total of $51,242. The first task order, if you will, if this is approved tonight, would have 3 tasks in it. I know that sounds weird, in one task order you have 3 tasks, but they are kind of interrelated, and that's the way they broke it down. And those would amount to a total of a little over, well, almost $20,000, $19,837. But if approved, if this resolution is approved, there's some certain follow-up steps that may be necessary, and rather than, and to keep things moving, we thought that it would be appropriate in this that it would grant to the mayor the ability to sign off on these other task orders that may come up after this one, and we would be able to keep the project moving, and that would be an amount not to exceed $31,405. SCS is certainly, oh, you're behind us. Yeah. Doug Dreiling with SCS Engineers is here. Doug and Susie at SCS, they've been great to deal with and easy to deal with. They've been extremely responsive, and it's our desire ultimately to get hopefully at least modified, if not eliminated. Now, the reason these deed restrictions, environmental restrictions need to be eliminated is that the developer on part of this property, he would like to build apartments. And according to the restrictive covenants that are on this property at this time, it's limited to, and correct me, Doug, if I'm wrong, industrial uses and certain commercial uses. And residential uses is not included in that. So I think we're moving in the right direction, and I think the folks at both Doug and Susie in working with MDNR, I think that we're getting some encouraging signs that this can happen, but they need to go and do these tests next. So if you have any questions, if they're easy, I'll try to answer them. If they're hard, I'll pass them to Doug. He's here to answer those.
Just a question. We were talking about possible follow-up task orders and the mayor's authority. We don't know the results yet, but is there a possibility that we will have to do some environmental cleanup?
Well,
And
I
if-
don't, this would not include any environmental cleanup as such, correct? That would be a separate matter. What this includes, for example, as an example, if necessary, like a soil management plan, I think is not in this first task order. We've excluded that out, and a handful of other items that are listed in their letter to us. Here they are. They're listed, if you will see, on the various items they have there. A lot of the work is on time and materials, and so we don't know how much that will be, and that's why they've given us their best estimate of what the maximum would be. Hopefully, it won't even come up to that, but we know what their hourly rates are. We know how much some of these other things would cost, but it would not include any remediation or cleanup, Councilman Clevenger. You know, I'm not saying that that's even going to be necessary, but we won't know that until we do the testing.
Right, okay. Thank you.
When this property was purchased from Eisenberg, was there any testing or anything done before the actual purchase, or did we just buy it?
Before we purchased the property, we did not do testing. We did not. On some of the sites we did, but we already knew that there were restrictive covenants. And remember, when we purchased the property, we had no idea whatsoever what might be going in there. You know, if they were putting in, you know, certain kinds of things down at that end of the property, and it's mostly to the south, and you know, it'd be west of and south of the former ADM mill site, there would have been some things we'd probably do a little bit of, and we did do some due diligence, and we provided that information to SCS, what we had done originally, but it all depended on we didn't have a developer, we had no plan when we bought the property, so we didn't know what would go in there, and it wouldn't make any sense to do a whole bunch of work, and then they say, oh yeah, we're gonna put in, and then it's something that they could put in there without getting any permission.
Okay.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 16.
North Kansas City High School, agreement granting permission to build on easement. Bill number 7199, ordinance number 8996.
Aye.
So we've given Sarah a rest. Now we'd like to bring her back. And she's also going to, 16 and 17 are very, very related. So in her summary to you, consider it to kind of cover both. So.
Good evening. Glad to be back. In our work with the North Kansas City School District on the high school renovation project, just for a little background, first of all, they are going to be building a new building, wings A, B, and C, they're called, that pretty much run from 23rd Avenue almost all the way up to 26th Avenue. And, you know, they're pretty good-sized new buildings. And they're doing these, moving from north to south. The first building they will build will be Wing C. That campus that they're on is pretty small, and it is comprised of, you know, some historic lots that were platted, you know, back in the beginnings of North Kansas City, including a little strip of their lot that used to be an alley that was vacated by the city back in 1950. When we vacated that alley, we reserved the right to maintain, relocate, repair, and replace an existing sanitary sewer line that is still there. Now, as we've been working with the school district, they really, you know, their building plans call for building Wing C over this sanitary sewer line and this vacated alley. We've worked with them on, you know, from a technical point of view, what they need to do for us to be able to maintain the sewer line in the future, what would happen if it needed to be replaced at some point in the future, et cetera, et cetera. And from a technical point of view, our Public Works Department is satisfied. However, in talking to Mr. Barzee, we've determined that it's really in our best interest for them to rededicate a new sanitary sewer easement to us, because while the school district in their plans shows that vacated alley as an easement. You know, what the instrument that dedicated that to us is, you know, one sentence in an ordinance vacating the alley. So we've asked them to rededicate that to us. In addition, as part of their plan for the new development, there is a driveway that runs from, you know, 23rd Avenue to 26th Avenue on the west side of their property that to us is essential for emergency access. Not only for, you know, the code and the fire code, but also just, you know, for the fire department to be able to get an ambulance or a fire truck back there if they should ever need to access a portion of this building. And that's shown on their plans, but we would feel more comfortable from a staff perspective if we had an ingress-egress easement that also covered this driveway so that we knew at some point in the future that access would not be blocked. And the school district has agreed to dedicate that to us. And they have already, the Board of Education has already taken action on these. And so one of these ordinances before you tonight is you accepting those two easements. And the second is giving permission for the school district to build Wing C over that sanitary sewer easement. Again, with some conditions that we have worked out with them, that sanitary sewer line, which is going to be replaced as part of their project, will be encased in a steel sleeve to protect it and allow us to replace it if necessary at some point in the future. So these two items before you are really to allow them to move forward with this construction based on all of the planning that we've been working on with their architects and engineers. If you have any questions, I would be happy to answer them, and I know Mr. Barzee, who drafted the agreement and the easements, would be happy to as well.
Yeah, I think I read it, but I want to make sure. They build the building over the sewer. The sewer collapses later. Who's going to pay to dig through the floor of a building and all that repair the sewer?
So the plan is that because of the steel sleeve, we would be able to basically pull the sewer line out from there and then push one back in. But the agreement also states that if we were to need to do work in the future, we would be responsible only for the cost that we would ordinarily bear to excavate and replace the line. And the school district would be responsible for any additional cost over and above that.
Okay, thank you. I thought I read it that way, but I thought I'd better check. Then I forgot that we've been doing a lot of work on sewers without digging anymore. So that's a plus.
First reading.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
An ordinance approving and accepting, 1, a permanent sanitary sewer easement, and 2, a non-exclusive easement for ingress and egress from North Kansas City 74 School District.
I move that bill number 7199 be placed on second and final reading and passes ordinance number 8996.
Second.
Call the roll.
Councilmember Farr?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember DeLong?
Yes.
Councilmember Pearman? Yes. Councilmember Sanders?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Steffen?
Yes.
An ordinance approving and accepting, 1, a permanent sanitary sewer easement, and 2, a non-exclusive easement for ingress and egress from North Kansas City 74 School District.
Okay, number 7D.
North Kansas City High School, agreement granting permission to build on easement, bill number 7200, ordinance number 8997.
First reading.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
An ordinance granting to the North Kansas City 74 School District the right to construct a building over a sanitary sewer easement under certain conditions and authorizing the city to enter into agreement granting permission to build over easement with the North Kansas City 74 School District.
I move that bill number 7200 be placed on second and final reading and passes ordinance number 8997.
Second.
Call the roll.
Councilmember Farr?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember DeLong?
Yes.
Councilmember Pearman?
Yes.
Councilmember Sanders?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Steffen?
Yes.
An ordinance granting to the North Kansas City 74 School District the right to construct a building over a sanitary sewer easement under certain conditions and authorizing the city to enter into agreement granting permission to build over easement with the North Kansas City 74 School District.
18.
Award of contract, Special Inspections YMCA Renovation Project, Resolution Number 17-043.
On this one, I'll ask David Harris to explain to you the agenda item.
Mayor, City Council, this item is to approve a contract for special inspections for the YMCA renovation. Special inspections are to inspect specific items such as steel construction, such as footings, and items such as earthwork. The items listed are based on a inspection per inspection, and so the contractor has estimated what the total limit would be, which is $10,000, and so this is not to exceed $10,000. I would be happy to answer any questions.
Is this $10,000, was that included in the budget that we have for the project, or is this, I didn't see any budget amendment, so I'm assuming that the funds are included in the project cost?
It was included in the project.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I just want, Mr. Harris didn't draft the resolution, and he may not be aware of this, because these are individual items that may come up, these testing things. We've done the same thing up to the $10,000. The mayor signs off on each of them. Okay.
Second.
Aye.
Number 19.
Code revision, additional class of liquor, Bill Number 7196, Ordinance Number 8993.
I would call on Sarah Copeland again.
Good evening. So we were approached by a local business with an inquiry about being able to sell beer by the drink on Sundays. This business currently has a beer and wine license, and they do not sell any food. So the current license they have does not permit them to sell by the drink on Sundays. So Matt Brantner and I, we were both approached by this business. There is a type of state license that we do not currently offer locally that would allow this beer only, 7 days a week. And so his recommendation was that we consider adding this type of license that would meet this business's needs. They would have to give up their existing license and get this new type and stop selling wine, but they seem very excited about that possibility. So we drafted the amendment that's before you tonight, which would add this type of license to our ordinance and make some other minor changes that Matt recommended to the package sales licenses, and would set the limit on the number of this type of license at 4. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have about this. I know Chief Beamer has reviewed this and is satisfied with it and would probably be able to answer any questions you might have as well.
Why do we need to have another business with a license? I don't want to sound like a member of Carrie Nations or proponent of the 18th Amendment or the Volstead Act, but, we just had recently allowed on certain days or functions down at Mackin Park to have, to sell liquor, and now you want to do this. And we have a business here who's, I like to help the businesses as much as I can, but this businessman, he knew the situation he was coming into. He knew what the ordinances were. I don't really understand the need to be changing this and ordinance at this time. You have a limit of 4. Well, down the road tomorrow, 4 becomes 8, and the next day it becomes 16. 16 becomes 32. We have to have a stop on some of this situation. And another thing is, I see in here where do not expect it to have an impact on public safety. I don't know if I can really go along with that in good conscience. I could see where there could be problems with that. I would favor always allowing them to sell beer on Sunday one day a year, and that's Super Bowl Sunday. But to do it on a consistent basis, I just don't see the need for this.
We said we didn't expect it to have an impact on public safety because we don't expect anyone would want to give up an existing license that would allow them to sell on Sundays for this type of license because it is much more restrictive.
How many businesses currently have the license that they have now? Like where they can't sell on Sunday?
I can't give you an exact number. Somewhere in the vicinity of, between the restaurant, bar licenses, around 15, I think.
I mean, without the food though.
Without
No
food, zero.
Zero. Okay.
Currently, you cannot have Sunday sales.
I mean, how many
if you don't
have the
food
permit that
sales.
they have now? Where they
beer
can
and
sell the
wine?
rest? Yeah, just the beer and wine the rest of the week.
Just one, I believe.
Just one?
I believe so.
Okay. And this, the way this is drafted, pretty much matches the way state law is, right? Okay.
What type of business is it that needs this?
Well, the business in question is Velo Garage. They have just a beer and wine license. They serve coffee and they serve beer and wine 6 days a week. And the other part of their business is, bicycle repair. And I think they have a small retail component. They've gotten a lot of inquiries from patrons who would like to be able to purchase a drink from them on Sundays, which is why they approached us about this.
I think I can add to this conversation just a little bit. So I've actually talked to the owners of that business, and understanding, Councilmember Steffen's concerns, it's a business that already has, sells beer and wine, but they specifically are sort of a niche business for a lot of the bicycling communities that are, coming into our city on the weekends, and so.
I don't want to interrupt you, but, so you're saying that bicyclists go in there?
Yes.
They drink and then they ride bicycles on the public street?
Yes, I don't think they drink to excess, but yes.
I don't know what excess is. There might be impairment, easily.
Have you had any problems with them so far?
We have not.
Okay.
Yeah, for me, I'm comfortable if the chief of police is comfortable and the liquor control director is comfortable and the staff is comfortable, then for me, I don't view this as a high-risk business. I did not when I went in there.
Got answered. I would agree with Councilwoman Perriman that, this is a beer drinking city anymore. You got these beer pubs and breweries and all this all over Northtown. I think we talked about when One North opens up, there's going to be places up there, and if we're limiting it to 4 licenses, at least at this point, why, I don't see any huge problem with it. No, don't ask for trouble till trouble troubles you. I'd be in favor of it.
First reading.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
An ordinance amending Title IV Alcoholic Beverages of the Code of the City of North Kansas City, Missouri by amending Chapter 4.12 thereof.
I move that bill number 7196 be placed on second and final reading and pass as ordinance number 8993.
Second.
Call the roll.
Councilmember Farr?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember DeLong?
Yes.
Councilmember Pearman?
Yes.
Councilmember Sanders?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Steffen?
No.
6-1, it passes. An ordinance amending Title IV Alcoholic Beverages of the Code of the City of North Kansas City, Missouri by amending Chapter 4.12 thereof.
20.
Sign ordinance amendment regarding sign exemptions. Bill number 7195, ordinance number 8992.
Sarah Copeland, if she could explain this one, please.
I would just cut you clear out. Go.
I should just leave, I think.
In February, the City Council approved an operating agreement with Bike Share KC for the installation and operation of new bike share stations in North Kansas City, and we Those are in the process of being installed, and we will have a ribbon cutting for those 3 new bike share stations next Friday. I hope you'll all attend. But as we've been coordinating with Bike Share KC on this, we did identify a need for some amendments to our sign ordinance in relationship to the signage that will be placed on these new stations. Your operating agreement does address signage, and the signage will be on the kiosks. And all signage will have to be in accordance with the guidelines in the agreement. And I'd be happy to talk a little bit more about that if you have questions. This ordinance amendment would allow for the installation of signs in the right-of-way related to these kiosks and exempt them from the conditions of our sign ordinance. We believe that this is appropriate because of the other restrictions placed on the signage by the operating agreement, which provides us with a little bit more oversight. This would list this as a separate exemption in our sign ordinance, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have about it.
First reading.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
An ordinance amending Chapter 15.44, signs, billboards, awnings, and street clocks of the Code of the City of North Kansas City, Missouri regarding exemptions.
I move that bill number 7195 be placed on second and final reading and passes ordinance number 8992.
Second.
Call roll.
Councilmember Farr?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember DeLong?
Yes.
Councilmember Pearman? Yes. Councilmember Sanders?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Steffen?
Yes.
An ordinance amending Chapter 15.44, signs, billboards, awnings, and street clocks of the Code of the City of North Kansas City, Missouri regarding exemptions.
21.
Agreement with North Kansas City Hospital Biomed Services, Resolution Number 17-046.
Mike.
Yes, if Chief Hargis from the Fire Department could discuss this one with you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. What's before you is an agreement with the North Kansas City Hospital to continue our preventive maintenance on our cardiac monitors, our oxygen sensors. Most of our technical medical equipment they take care of on a regular basis for us. They do the calibration for it, preventive maintenance and everything for free. They've been doing it this way for 3 or 4 years. It's great. They are there anytime we need them. If something goes wrong, we call them up. They have somebody usually within the hour to work on it for us. And what they've essentially asked for is that to continue this, they want us to sign an agreement with them. There'll be no change in any charges or any of the conditions other than just signing the agreement.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Number 22.
Temporary license agreement of parking lot, Northtown Devco, Bill Number 7202, Ordinance Number 8999.
Mr. Fike.
And Tom Barzee is going to discuss this one.
I don't know if there's going to be anything to say. It sounded like we had a lot of people from the public that wanted to speak about this one this evening. As you know, this was the agenda was amended yesterday, and this came together very, very quickly. We have been working on it probably going back 5 or 6 weeks. The mayor, members of staff, Mr. Lanning and Rich Groves, we had a meeting and this was discussed, the issue of downtown available parking spaces, especially as new businesses continue to come into downtown that stay open late at night, especially, there's not adequate parking. And so it was Richard Lanning, Northtown Devco, indicated they'd be willing to do something. And in front of you is a license agreement, a non-exclusive temporary license agreement, and passed around because literally, as the mayor knows, he really wanted to get this on for tonight, and you can see why with the number of people that showed up to discuss it. This came together all late yesterday afternoon, and as a result, there were some things that needed to be changed in it, and that's why you have this red line version. But if you look at all of the red, most all of the red is simply changing the word premises to the word parking lot, okay? But the significant change, a couple of things is, at the top of page 2, parking lot hours in operation, they give us the right of ingress and egress into the parking lot for driveway purposes. Well, they also need to give us access through this gate. And to answer Councilman Steffen's question about that, that is included, and they are providing that themselves. In other words, Northtown Devco will do that. They will, near the southwest corner along Clay Street, at a spot that they will determine, they will put a gate in, and they will put in a very small sidewalk just to connect it from the parking lot over to the existing sidewalk, so people have something to walk through. Northtown Devco, NG Realty will, they're going to man the gate, meaning they'll open it and they'll lock it, and it needs to be locked during the day so that it doesn't affect their people, but it will be unlocked basically from 5:30 at every evening. It'll open up at 5:30, and it will go through 6 a.m. The next morning, and then it will open up at 5:30 at night on Friday and go all the way to 6 a.m. On Monday. So it'll be open the entire weekend during the day, et cetera. This is a license agreement. Let me explain. This is not a lease. Meaning we don't have the same rights under a license agreement that we would under a lease. They were not interested in doing a lease. I mean, you know, they were not interested in selling the parking lot. I mean, we explored a lot of things with them, but they are willing to do this at the rate of $350 a month. They will maintain it, though. They will plow it. They do all the maintenance to it. We really will not be involved. I mean, we have a gentleman's understanding if we have some huge event in town and it really gets trashed, you know, their parking lot, that we'd probably, you know, would be willing to use some of our, but that's not even in writing in here. It's just kind of a gentleman's understanding that if something like that happened, we would. But the other changes, it had to go through our insurance people, and so we needed to verify what insurance was available that we would provide without us having to go to the expense of acquiring new and additional insurance. That is reflected in here as well. So I'll be glad to answer any questions you have, but it seems to me the mayor, and it shows, it's on the very last page, the exhibit shows the parking lot, and it's the entire parking lot. As the mayor knows, the first draft of this that came by, it was only going to be a couple of rows of parking right next to Clay, and we were just concerned how we would ever monitor that. You know, how do we know who's parking? So they came back and they said, no, it should be the whole parking lot, and the mayor caught that right away. And so be glad to answer any questions, though, that you have.
Couple of questions. So I think you answered this one on the insurance. We don't have to purchase any additional insurance?
That is my understanding from communicating with our insurance carrier as of today.
And I think Rich said it was around 100 spots. Where the money to pay for this license agreement, is that coming out of gaming, general fund? Do we know yet?
I think it could be either one, and I think we're going to have to decide. This does not include a budget amendment this evening. Probably we'll be doing that in a couple of weeks.
Okay, and then signage, like, are we going to have some signage saying public parking after a certain amount of time? And how do we monitor to make sure people aren't parking there during the day?
We're just going to have to spread. They weren't real anxious to sign their parking lot.
So I'm sorry.
More word of mouth?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, and when the gate's in and open and everything, it'll be pretty obvious for people that they'll be able to park there.
Okay.
I mean, because it's awkward. Otherwise, you start having to put times on signs, and because they really don't want people there. I'm sure that's something, if it's not working at all, we can go back and revisit that with them.
Thank you.
I have a couple questions.
No, go ahead.
On the insurance, just a follow-up question to Councilmember Clevenger's. So if we have our coverage, if an event happens during the time where we are the licensee, then that would fall under our insurance coverage if an event happens it can be reasonably determined to happen in their time frame, then it would fall under their coverage. Is
It
that
should,
right?
because that's what I went back. If you look, right above the insurance paragraph is the liability paragraph. You'll notice what's been added there in red during the hours of operation. Also down near the bottom, it talks about during the hours of operation. Hours of operation with a capital H and the capital O. It's defined at the front end, and that was the time period that I was just mentioning to you.
Right.
Defined in paragraph 5.
And do we have any cameras on this lot or facing this lot?
Pardon, I didn't hear
Do we
you.
have
I'm
any cameras on this lot or facing this lot?
I don't,
The
I'll
reason I
defer
ask
to the
is
chief.
if there ever is an
We do
issue,
not.
I guess, so we might want to consider that, I guess,
We-
is my
well-
thought, but.
We have to have a building to place it on. We've got the camera at 18th and Clay that has the ability to look north on Clay. But a significant portion of the parking lot we're discussing here would not be visible on
Hidden,
camera.
yeah,
And placing a camera to oversee that lot would require an agreement to place it on a private structure down there.
Okay. And then I just had some general questions. Have we ever entered into a license agreement with any other private business for parking?
No.
In North Kansas?
The others that we have with private entities where we're leasing property,
Is a lease?
it's always been a lease, like we have one with the Christian Church here just across the street, and it's a lease. But, that, the numbers aren't that different, but
But that's what I was gonna ask,
It's-
is are the fees pretty much comparable to what we would pay if we were leasing? with
Yeah,
someone else?
especially when you consider that we have obligations to do certain, I think we plow that lot, don't we, Pat? The Christian Church one? So we do things over here, and if I remember right, I think when we first entered into it, I think we put the lighting in that lot. Yes. Okay.
That's good.
So
I mean, it's a
there was
win-win,
there was some things there. I can just tell you this, and the mayor and other staff members were in that meeting with Richard. He was very cooperative, but it was pretty obvious that we were not going to get a lease because he didn't want to have to go through, if he wants to terminate it, he just wants it terminated. If this doesn't work, he will terminate it and just permanently lock the gate.
I think this is a great amenity to an old and established North Kansas City business such as Paul and Jack's. I think it will ultimately benefit North Kansas City in many ways. It's just another thing that we're doing to attract people downtown to eat and to enjoy the things that North Kansas City has. There might be some problems along the way, but I'm sure they can be worked out. I think it was well thought out, and it's been discussed here. I'd be in approval of it.
First reading.
I have one more question,
sorry.
sorry. I just thought of it. Are we gonna spread the word like on social media or Facebook, or have you guys talked about that?
I'm just in charge of getting this together. I'm not the campaign guy.
Okay, all right.
I think that there'll be some ways, and Richard might say, hey, if you want to put a sign up here or there, like on the fence that shows you can park in this lot or something,
He
he
didn't
may
say
be
he-
amenable to that.
He didn't say he wasn't comfortable spreading the word on social media.
Oh, no,
Okay.
not at all.
So, all right, figure that out. Thank you.
If there's no further questions in first reading.
I got one more.
Uh-oh.
I think, we all know that it just takes one person to screw things up.
Exactly.
And I think that it would really behoove the businesses down there to tell the people that, let's take care of this thing because it can go away. I wondered if maybe it will put out a flyer or something explaining to the patrons what this is. I don't know, but I think it's something to be thought about. Okay, I'm done.
The motion on the floor.
First reading, so.
I second the first reading.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
An ordinance adopting and approving a non-exclusive temporary license agreement by and between the City of North Kansas City, Missouri and Northtown Devco for the temporary use of a certain parking lot owned by Northtown Devco.
I move that bill number 7202 be placed on second and final reading and passed as ordinance number 8999.
Second.
Call roll.
Councilmember Farr.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember DeLong.
Yes.
Councilmember Pearman. Yes. Councilmember Sanders.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Clevenger.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart.
Yes.
Councilmember Steffen.
Yes.
An ordinance adopting and approving a non-exclusive temporary license agreement by and between the City of North Kansas City, Missouri and Northtown Devco for the temporary use of a certain parking lot owned by Northtown Devco.
Good luck. 23.
Approving accounts due and payable by the city through June 2nd, 2017. Bill number 7198, ordinance number 8995.
First reading.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
An ordinance authorizing payment for certain accounts due and payable by the city through June 2nd, 2017.
I move that bill number 7198 be placed on second and final reading and passes ordinance number 8995.
Second.
Call roll.
Councilmember Farr?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember DeLong?
Yes.
Councilmember Pearman? Yes. Councilmember Sanders?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Steffen?
Yes.
An ordinance authorizing payment for certain accounts due and payable by the city through June 2nd, 2017.
Mr. Mike.
Yes, only staff comments this evening were two items. One, and I believe both were included in your packet. The upcoming city items of note was included, and a memo that talked about the results of the Clean and Green recycling event. So that's all from staff this evening.
Okay, Tom, I guess you're next.
I wanted to commend the city staff for bringing this parking lot up and running. I mean, it's great to see that we can share the parking lots with our fellow business people when they're not using it during the evening. I think we're going to have to come up with more of this if we want the city to continue to grow. I mean, things are changing for the positive for our little city. Who would have ever thought that we'd be the craft brew pub of the Kansas City area right now, which I think is a great idea. But I mean, things just keep growing and growing, and we're going to have more parking issues that we're going to have to address if we want to bring people to our city. And I think we're doing that right now. This is the first small step that we're doing through this, and I just want to commend Tom and his group for doing it for me. Thank you, Tom.
There were other people, I mean, certainly to get this out, Sarah drafted the memo because I couldn't do the agreement and the resolution in such an ordinance. Crystal stuck around and it sent it out after 5 o'clock, so it took a lot of people to get it together, that's for sure.
Just wanted to thank everybody.
And Mike supervised very well.
That's all, sir. That's all.
Mr. DeLong.
I also wanted a second on that, the parking lot. It's definitely been a hot topic recently, especially in that area. You get down there to park, there's cars everywhere, cars driving in circles, looking for places. So this is great that we can work with other community stakeholders to get this in place. Now we just need to keep it in place and try to make sure we're keeping it clean, keeping it, you know, the surrounding businesses chipping in to make sure that we keep this agreement. And then a couple other things of note is Dag Park's open. You guys have probably seen all the kids out there. It's been nice to have that open. Arts in the Park this Friday, 5 to 9, Saturday, 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. So that should be a good time out there at Mackin Park. And that's it for me.
I want to reiterate Councilmember Farr's comments. I thought those were excellent on the parking lot idea. I think those partnerships between businesses and the city are really instrumental as we move forward, as are the involvement of our residents. So thank you for Richard Lanning to bring that to us. I'm excited to see the North Kansas City High School work kick off. It'll be interesting to see how that goes, but I'm excited about it. Thank you, Sarah and Richard, who's not here, Brantner, and Chief Beamer for working on that business issue with the liquor license. I think it's just sort of a tweaking that needs to be done for certain little niche businesses. So thank you for that work. Looking forward to Arts in the Park. And also thank you to, I think she left, but Christine Evans, who came and did the presentation on Feed Northland Kids, because that was super interesting and sad to know that any kid needs a backpack on a weekend, but they do, and I'm glad that that organization is there to help them and that we were part of that. Thank you.
Nothing in it.
Just a couple of things, ditto on the parking lot. I'm glad we were able to work that out, and it's a good problem to have. And so, again, echo Mr. Councilmember Farr's comments. Thank you to everyone who worked on that. Councilmember DeLong already brought up about the arts in the park. There is also a Friday night concert at the park this Friday night. I think it's a rock and roll band, so try to make it out to that if you can. That's it.
A couple of things. First, I felt like instead of a council meeting, this is a Sarah Copeland show tonight. But there was some complaints about sidewalks that we brought to the attention of the city, and man, you guys got them fixed fast. And so we appreciate that for all the people that fell on them. But I don't remember, or I should have wrote it down because my wife says I can't remember anything, but there's a memorial for Bill Biggerstaff at the park in July the
First.
I thought it was, but it didn't want to say it.
12 to 6, 12 to 4,
Yeah, something like it.
12 to 6.
So everybody's, I'm sure, is welcome to that. You know, the parking lot thing, the NT Realty came up with, you know, that shows businesses helping businesses. And if you know businesses in town that aren't members of the business council, they should really join. This is what comes from that. You know, they interact and they help each other. And, you know, if I had a business in town, I would sure belong to the business council. It helps quite a bit. I think that was it. I'm kind of disappointed. I still hadn't seen anything above ground on the Parks building. I walk by there about every day and keep thinking something might come up out of the ground sooner or later. I know on 24th Street in the 1000 block, guys built a house and a 2-car garage in a week. So I'm sure he didn't have the trouble underground that they probably had down at the parks. But I'd be glad to see that thing starting to gather some air. That building down at the One North, and that's looking good. You know, the framework up on it, and that's all I have, Fred.
Well, I want to also express appreciation to everyone that got together in the partnership between the city and business community on the parking issue there at area there of 18th and Clay. Parking is a problem in that area. There's no doubt about it. And also, you know, it's rewarding to see across the street there, all those kids out there in Dag Park. They sure enjoy that spray park, I think. Another thing is today, I got one of these North Kansas City connections. And there's a lot of interesting things I do want to point out. So we don't forget it, that a week from today, that's Tuesday, the 13th, we want to hear from everyone on a community workshop. And that will be right here at 2010 Howe, from 4 p.m. till 6:30. There's other interesting things. I want to point out, I hope people read these things, the North Kansas City Connection. You look here on page, what would be 3, they're not numbered, but I would say it was 3, and that's the new notification system that they're bringing to everyone's attention on the TextCaster. And to me, I find it interesting over here on page 2 to look at the uniform crime reports and see the comparison between the last 4 years, I think it is. Also, people are always asking, well, a number of people ask me about different things like our revenues and expenditures and our revenues budget. And here on page 4 of the North Kansas City Connection, you can see that. So That's about all I have, except I just happen to think, today is June 6th. 73 years ago today was D-Day. 154,000 military landed on the shores of Normandy to begin the ending of the war in Europe. That's all I have.
When is that bike share ribbon cutting?
Next Friday, the 16th at 12:30, and it will be the new bike share station at Armor and Iron right next to the YMCA. You will have cupcakes that will have little bikes on top.
Okay, thank you.
I think everything's been said, so let's move on to 27.
Consideration of a request to hold in recess into an executive session as requested by the city administrator to be held on this date on a real estate matter pursuant to Missouri Revised Statutes, Section 610.0212.
Call roll. Second. Call roll.
Councilmember Farr? Yes, ma'am. Councilmember DeLong? Yes. Councilmember Pearman?
Yes?
Councilmember Sanders?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Stefan?
Yes.